Let's get this show going, man.
Welcome to the Bleeding Burgundy podcast, a Washington Commanders podcast for fans by fans, with your hosts, Jesse Martin.
The Cowboys are finished, you understand me?
John Taman.
Pull down my trousers and do your job.
Scott Hartley.
Well, that was dreadful.
And occasionally, Keith Gray.
So many social engagements, so little time.
And now, your host.
What is going on, everybody? I don't know why John cut that off, but he did. But John's not here, as y'all can recognize my voice. I'm Jesse Martin, here with, as always, with my co-host, the man from across the pond, Scott freaking Hartley. Scott, how are you doing?
I still love that. Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Jesse. It's great to be on with you and our guest today as well. It'll be a good pod, I'm sure.
We got a good friend joins us today. All y'all know him from the Burgundy and Gold Report. Our friend Adam Aniba. What's going on, Adam? Thank you for joining us, bud.
I appreciate you, man. It's been way too long. So I was like, you hit me up. I was like, yeah, man. Only a few people I know that are legit that I'll do it with, last man. But I was like, man, it's been too long.
We appreciate it. I know we've tried before, but times have not always worked out. But I'm glad you were available. We're a little short-staffed today, as many companies are. So we were trying to scramble around, trying to find some people to jump on, and Adam was the first to text back. So we definitely appreciate it. Well, boys, we're sitting at 4-5. 2 weeks ago we were like, the season is over with. We're done. Everybody's gone. And then a good offensive performance against the Philadelphia Eagles, and then turn around and win on the road against a well-coached, competitive team in the New England Patriots. As we talked on Monday, it seems like we pretty much controlled that game from top to bottom. We shot ourselves in the foot a couple times, but I think we all felt pretty decent about that win. And here we are with, going up against the 5-3 Seattle Seahawks. We're traveling across country. It's a late game, or late afternoon game. Adam, I want to start with you first. How do you feel about this team at midpoint of the season, going across country and facing seem like they're it's hard to judge, at least in my opinion. It's hard to judge these Seahawks. I mean, they got a couple good wins, like beating the Detroit Lions and a PJ Walker quarterbacked Cleveland Browns, which I don't think the Browns played very well in that game on all facets. But other than that, they haven't been very impressive. What do you think, man?
Well, Baltimore blew them out. Yeah. And I think you can look at that you have to look at it with a grain of salt, because I think this is a tough matchup. They're coming off that loss. I think they're between their receivers and their DBs. This is a hard matchup for Washington. So this is, to me, you talk about real measuring sticks. Put the record aside. It's about the environment and the matchup. So to me, if they can win this one, I'll have a little more confidence that they're a true potential wild card kind of team. If they lose, I say, I'm already looking at draft picks. That's what I do anyways. But I think that's like officially it's time to do it, because this game is so big to their team right now. And, after you trade your starting two defensive ends, you see how you can rebound. There was subpar against New England, but you get that KJ Henry sack fumble, and, you could be talking about a much bigger win. So it's not really indicative of how they played, but this is the kind of game. Geno Smith, he's kind of been one of those guys that he came into a really good situation. They bolstered their receiving unit even more. So they have Metcalf and even more now. So I think that's going to be a tough matchup. But I think that this is a game that, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Sam Howell's going to do, because they're going to bring it against him.
Scott, does the record of 7-1 mean anything to you? I mean, does that mean anything to us? Should it mean anything to us, our record against Seattle in the regular season?
No, I don't think it should do, really. I mean, historically, yes, it's a great record to have, going up there and being 7-1. But what we have to look at is we've historically drawn them in the playoffs a lot and lost. So, it's one of them where we've got to. Records don't mean anything at the moment. As Adam said and pointed out, I'm kind of in agreement with him. Exactly where you were. We started this 2 weeks ago and thought the season was completely over with. I think it's going to be a really tough matchup. It's going to be kind of a 50-50 kind of game here. It depends entirely on the crowd. Can the noise be maintained? Is the silent count going to work for Sam Howell? How we're going to play in that hostile environment, because that's what they do. There are the crowds on top of you, the stadium designed that way to be on top of you, right up there in the Pacific Northwest. It's a long way to travel as well. But ultimately, I think we kept it close last week, where it shouldn't have been close, as you suggested there. There was opportunities to kind of put the pedal to the metal there and say that this is a better team than we were last week. But it was workmanlike is the way I've utilized it, and said we've got the win because that's what we needed to do. Interestingly enough, if you go by statistics and you're that analytic, if you look at that, the receiving cores are not much different in the way that they've got stats to touchdowns, and Jigba, Metcalf and Lockett are very similar to what we've got. Obviously, their running game is a little bit better in statistics than we are, but Sam Howell's miles in front of Geno Smith at the moment for touchdowns against and yards. But clearly, the only stat that's bad for Sam is the sacks, which we've talked about, but that hasn't really been that much of a factor. I think if you can give up 2 or 3 a game, I don't have a concern with that. It's when we're in the 5s and 6s per game. That's where we're kind of thinking, there's a little bit going on here. So I think it's who starts fast for me in this game. And it is, as you said, the measuring stick, Adam. This is a true test of will, test of character, really, and where we are after 4 years with Ron at the helm. Right. That's exactly where we are.
Adam, you mentioned it in your previous comment about trading away our 2 defensive ends. And we've beat this horse the past few podcasts, but I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think, now I'll just say personally, I thought it was a poor decision to get rid of both of them now, because that just leaves 2 holes instead of 1 right. for next year. Yes, you get those draft picks back, but you're getting rid of 2 first round talent defensive ends, and what are you going to fill them with, really? What do you think the overall thought process was, and do you agree with it?
I'll tell you what, I put a lot of thought into this and articles into this. You got to look at the ones that are up for re-signing. So you're talking about pre-trade, Sweat. I'm going to put it in the order. Yes. Sweat, Young, and Curl. Okay. I think they made a decision early on. Curl was going to be the one out of those 3 that definitely got resigned, and they would see how it would go. So they went into the season. I think that they liked what they saw from Sweat, but they didn't love what they saw from him. So in their minds, if they could get a 2 or higher, they would take it. And I think that's exactly what they did with Chase Young. I think they knew exactly what they were going to get. They were just hoping to maybe see some change from him, less freelancing, I guess, the talk is he's not he going along with the program, with the plays, whatever the truth is, he's not meshing with them. So I really wonder what the conversations were between Ron Rivera and Harris in the group, because again, you got to be naive to think Ron's definitely back next year. So it doesn't matter how he really fit with JDR and Ron Rivera. It mattered what ownership thought of him. So I think they did come to a collective that he wasn't going to be resigned or franchise tagged. Otherwise, I don't think you would have seen them give that up. So I think they didn't intend to do that whatsoever. It's just kind of how it felt. Ooh. And again, you talk about draft picks. What this does, though, for an ownership group now that's going to have $91 million in cap, which is going to grow once they, more releases. So talk about close to 100 plus. And now you have these extra draft picks to move up. So you talk about that draft with Dwayne Haskins and where they moved up to get Montez Sweat at the end of that first round. This is that kind of draft where what are the top things we need? They need a left tackle, offensive line. But what other people are really not talking about, besides the analytics guy that they hired, which I love, is how important an elite tight end can be in the NFL. And if you look at the teams that are just doing the best, not every year do you have a kind of guy like that. This year you have a guy named Brock Bowers from Georgia, if not a lot of people know about him. This is the kind of guy you talk about, Kelsey, Kittle, a guy that's already, I don't know about there, but he's already ready to go to the NFL and do that. So if you're talking about a rebuilding team, go into a draft, go into free agency, make your upgrades. There's There's White, the linebacker from Tampa Bay. You know, you talk about defensive ends. You fill another hole. You have Burns from Carolina that's supposed to be available. Okay, you make those kind of moves, but on offense, you're able to get the best left tackle in the draft and a guy like Brock Bowers. So that puts you in a position to not just get maybe a win or two. That puts you in a position there. If you're happy with Hal, if your ownership, you can take the next step. In saying that, it was, for me, it's kind of sacrificing the season. So I think that it's not saying that trading those guys costs you the year, but I think once you get going in the next 4 to 5 games, let's say they do beat Seattle and they try to make this run. Listen, you're trying to do that with James Smith-Williams, Hill, reserves. You know, granted, they've had their shining moments, and I wrote about them. But this is extended play, the first extended play all these guys have had. And I think you really have to temper your expectations when it comes to that. Like, I think people look how good we played Philly 2 games in a row. Man, it's the NFC East. They always play each other like this, no matter what year it is as a fan. Going back to 83, the worst record, you beat the best record in the NFC East. So throw that out. So it's about overall ceiling. I think when you move those guys, that was a move for the future, sacrificing the present. So I think we just have to be realistic that, you know, you can maybe get some guys to step up. That'd be great. But I think in the end, they did what's best for the future. And as a guy that really focuses on the draft and building your team, because I think that's the way you do it, I think they did the right thing. Because this team, I think, going in, I said 9 wins, 10 wins if everything goes right. So I think we're probably more around that 7-8 game wins range now. So again, are you going to keep one of those guys to, you know, hopefully franchise, go through an offseason battle? Now they can focus everything on Cam Curl. To me, he's the most valuable piece in their defense. And once you re-sign Payne, I think the writing was on the wall for one of those defensive ends, possibly 2 anyways. So.
Okay, so let me rewind what you were saying about, getting these draft picks and then needing a left tackle. But, I mean, we're going to need a right tackle too.
Oh, of course.
We're going to need a defensive end. We're going to need 2 defense. We're going to need probably 2 linebackers. I understand the Cam Curl wanting to sign Cam Curl. I'm still confused why he isn't already signed. That just doesn't make a bit
no
of
ownership.
sense.
I think he would have been done if it wasn't ownership.
So if you're now – this conditional or I'm sorry, not conditional fourth round, compensatory 3rd round pick, which is really a 4th round pick. To me, throw that away. I don't care about that pick right there. What I want, okay, I'm going on my little vent basically for you because everybody's heard my thought process of this. Yeah. You know, Ron Rivera's gone. You know, the staff's going to be gone. You know, all these front office people are going to be gone. Why not make your new front office make these decisions right here? I understand the sweat, get that. But why not let your new coaching staff, your new GM, make this decision right now? To me, that compensatory 3rd round pick, I'm sorry, it's not worth a whole bunch to me. It really isn't. It's not worth the opportunity that this new staff coming in here saying, I can get the most out of Chase Young. Yeah, they sit down with Chase Young and be like, listen, it's a new day. It is a brand new day. You're going to stay home. We're going to franchise you for this year, and you're going to go work your butt off, and we're going to go pay you $26 million a year afterwards. Like, for the life of me, I don't understand why that wasn't an option. Like why in the little prick in the back of my head is telling me they're going to fucking keep Rivera for another year because of this move right here. Just a little itty bitty prick. I still don't understand it. All right, my vent's over with. I'm done. I promise I won't talk about it for the rest of the season because it's just to me, it's just making too many holes. When you got so many to that you're going to have to fill. One compensatory 3rd round pick is not going to really do a whole heck of a lot for you, to be honest with you. And I understand, you know, he wasn't happy here. I get it. I just still think that the talent is too far up there just to give up on for a compensatory pick. I don't know. That's me. I know I'm in the minority about this. I think I'm in the minority about this, but I know there's people that feel the same way too. Scott, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I understand your point of view, but for me, obviously, I think when we did our initial pod for 20 minutes or so, when we found out they were traded, I almost acted like the realist here. I think sometimes we put way too much way too much thought into the players that actually play in the shirt rather than what we can do in the future and what we can do to move this team forward. I mean, I've never known anything in my fandom apart from continual rebuild, which is annoying, to say the least. But I think if we are comfortable and sensible and we realize that Sam Howell is going to be the guy, which again, you do need that body of work, and I completely understand where you're coming from, Jesse. If you have the cap space to build around it, I mean, what's the average cap going up every year? 12 million there or thereabouts, so we're probably going to be well over 100 plus your cuts after that. 25 people on this team are going to have contract issues by the end of the season that we're going to have to sort out. So whoever the new coaching staff that come in is going to be a massive turnover of players. We just have to stop getting used to these players and yes, enjoy them while they're here and let them make them ball out in the shirt and play for this team and give you everything. Some become legends and some become, absolute fan favorites. I get that. But the way that the fans have reacted to this, I'm like, hold on a minute. What has he proven as the second overall draft pick? In that, what has he
had a pretty
you?
damn good rookie year. So
I will give you that. I will give you that. And I've said it on here, especially. I thought as soon as I'd seen that season, I thought this guy's going to Canton. Measure him for his jacket right now, but we haven't seen the production that you get. If you were going to get a defensive end there, I want to see a Myles Garrett. I want to see a Nick Bosa.
Right.
That's where I want to see. Or you look back at that draft and think, man, my God, Tua, Justin Herbert was there. There's other options that you think to yourself, right?
That's the hindsight that no one wins.
Of course it is, and no one wins with 2020 vision today. It's always the same like that. I get you, but I think at this point, there's something gone on in the background, whether Chase, as you said, didn't want to be here, or if it was just the coaching staff had said enough's enough, but it has to be signed off by ownership, as Adam said, and you ultimately get what you can. Josh Harris is not the sort of guy in his other sporting franchises where he's hung around and, he's been sentimental around guys. And how many times have we seen it in Washington where we've got sentimental with people, or we've signed these expensive free agents that have become pretty terrible when they've arrived here on large contracts? We're the team that does that. So I'm hopeful that this is a bit of forward thinking by the team, and that we can build around Sam moving forward.
Over what you just said, Scotty, I will go back to my previous comments in previous weeks. In that particular instance, we're rebuilding, cut away the fat, strip everything, start from over. Terry McLaurin. And I didn't
disagree with you.
In that aspect, Terry McLaurin should be on the trade block in the offseason. I know we love him. He's my favorite player, but he is getting older. He has a big contract. And look, we got a number one receiver right there in the wings ready to take over. Adam, do you think I'm crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy at all. I just think you can learn a lot about Harris by looking at his other franchises. And, granted, I'll admit it, I haven't really kept up with the NBA since Iverson retired. That was my day. But one thing I've seen with his Sixers, look at Joel Embiid, okay? That's his Terry McLaurin right there. So even if he totally does a rebuild, he's got a couple guys, I think, and he's done that with his other teams, that he's going to keep as their figureheads. Right now, I think when you saw Chase Young get moved, he's been the guy on the flyers, on the programs. To him, that was Ron's guy. It wasn't just a Ron decision. I firmly believe that there was something about this whole situation that they wanted to go a different direction. And what I think is they knew they weren't going to get a compensatory pick of their own because they were going to go the offseason. They're going to spend. That's one thing that fans should take from that. I don't think it's 100%. A stretch or anything like that. That they knew that they weren't going to get any comp picks, so let's move them to get what we can get because we're going to spend some money this offseason. And I think that they really want to get faster at the position. Guys I reached out to that do analytics, and I'll admit I don't know it at all. And one thing that kept coming out to me was after Payne was signed, the writing was on the wall for both. And I was like, really? I thought it would probably be one or the other. And they're like, no. They're not going to have three guys on that line making $20+ million a year. The way the analytics are going to fold out. Now you're going to see some more money put on the offense. You're going to see money put on the weakest spot on the defense right now, which is linebacker. So you've got some guys that are available. So I think that you're right, and the other teams would do that. I think that when he brought in this guy Shen to do his analytics, I think it's already going on. I think literally he's involved with scouting. I think he's involved with so many departments. And I think he's not just overseeing one area right now. This is everything I heard. Because as soon as I saw that video where he was at Florida International, I dug deep because that's what I do. I'm a research guy. Everybody that was attending that conference, I talked to a gentleman that was there, and that was a while ago. And one thing he's talking about, he talks to him here and there. And this guy, he's not just a guy that's going to have his recommendations and give it to the owner. That's not why he was hired. He was with the Ravens. I think Tennessee, too, is who he's with. Mm-hmm. This guy is heavily involved in players and allocating money and where that goes. So I think what you're going to see is, yes, Terry McLaurin is getting older, but he's signed, sealed, delivered. He's paid for. His deal is actually a bargain going into next year and then the following year, the next 2 years. It's not going to even be in the top 15 to 20 contracts at the position. He just has to keep performing. As long as he's performing, he's worth it. And right now, you get that offensive line together. There's no question to me that Sam Howell right now, he's your guy. He's going to get you. He's going to get 10 plus targets to Terry a game. But right now, Eric Bieniemy is moving around because I think he does understand what he has on the offensive line. So there's just a couple of guys that I think that are part of your franchise going forward, rebuild or not. And Terry McLaurin, in my opinion, to him, he's just perfect. He's good. He's good PR. He's an excellent speaker. He's great on the field. So to me, yeah, he's probably, if there was going to be anybody, he was the one guy that would be, persona non grata. Nobody's going to.
No, I understand. I think for me, in my opinion, I say anybody over the age of 24, see you. They're on the table. I think let's get whatever we can. I know that's not really. That's not really like probably won't happen, but it's just my thinking. You're getting rid of them too. Why not go out loud? If you get something good for Daron Payne, because he's been a little bit disappointing. John Allen, his contract, you can get out of his contract next year without too big of a hit. And as you said, Adam, we got a ton of money in cap space that we could absorb that pretty easily. I just think we do have a young team, and it's been a while since we've had this young of a team, and who knows who's going to be running this team next year. We don't know. I just think they should be making the major decisions in it. Personally, I don't know, Scott, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I mean, we're looking at Sam Howell. We talked about rebuilding and building around Sam Howell. We both talked about it there. Do you think EB will be here next year? Because obviously he's on trial at the moment as well for, everyone's on an audition, aren't they? And he's bet on himself to be here. And it's got better the last couple of weeks, absolutely. But we've had some head scratches where we're like, what is actually going on here? And it's the first time, obviously, him being the official play caller. But I think that's going to be quite difficult if you're bringing in a brand new head coach above EB, to have EB as your offensive mind that's going to sit there. But in some ways, do you then expect Sam Howell to learn a third playbook in 3 years? It's going to be
quarterbacks. They do that crap all the time. And in my opinion, EB has not shown enough yet. I say yet. We still have half the season to go, guys. We really do. But the first half of the season left a lot to be desired in play calling, game planning aspect of it. But I'd like to hear Adam's thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, what I want to see is a GM hired. I want to see it done the right way. I like EB, and let's say he has a great season. Cool. I still want to see a GM. And if that GM says the EB's not the guy, so be it. He's talking about getting attached, not only getting attached to players, getting attached to these coaches. Listen, as far as the defense goes, look what they've done this year, how many 30-plus point games they gave up. So I can see why you traded pieces. As far as EB, we got a whole half season to go. He's got better. There's been better decision-making, but, he was in charge of the offense, and that means he was in charge of taking people out of the offensive line. People talk about, they've been better since Larson's in. Okay, well, that's his job to know that. So I wanted to see that early on. So you have from now to the end of the season going to be enough? I'm not sure. And, I wasn't the proponent of, letting go of Ron Rivera and seeing what EB can do in that role. So we have at least, half a season to see, not only is he running the offense, how's he running this team as a head coach? But now I don't even care, because I don't think because like I said, I want to see a GM. And I think if they do their due diligence, get the right GM and build this staff the right way. I think that one thing about the Harris group, they're going to spend. And if they're willing to spend, I don't think that all this crap about Bill Belichick. This is Snyder.
Good God, no.
He wouldn't even
Good
work with
God,
Snyder
no.
number one. But I think the whole idea of Bill Belichick, I think his time as coming to an organization and running everything, if a team does that, so be it. But I think you got to be stupid.
Yeah,
Because I don't think
I
he's
think
the
most
position
of us are.
career
Yeah,
that you're going to
no
do
way.
that. So just have the tier system. You have the GMs, because these guys, we have their figurehead. Ron's pretty much sitting with them, the Martys, and they're having a discussion about who they like. That's not how it should be done. You know what I mean? I want to see a real GM brought in. You're going to have teams in the playoffs, so that means you can't talk to those GMs, those position coaches, or even special permission. I think that it's really shaky how that works. So I think you're talking about at the end of the Super Bowl. Right then, I think that you can see changes. But the thing is, for people to say, well, the draft is only going to be in April, I already think the wheels are already turning with the scouting department. So I'm not worried about that. I think that scouting department's already going to be going. Doesn't matter if it's Ron or wherever. So by the time they get to January, I think they'll pull in their interviews. They'll get their GM. And I think it'll be a pretty quick process, because I think that they're going to go after some of the bigger names. I think you could see guys from Philadelphia, Kansas City, different guys like that. That's the way things have to be done. I think you've seen how successful teams have been built. Snyder has just never did that, never understood the purpose. You don't hire a coach first and then GM and everyone later, or let the coaches be the GM. They did it with Mike Holmgren, now Ron Rivera, other coaches. This is not how the modern day NFL has success. So I just hope that they're going to do it the right way. But the only way, we keep talking about is Ron Rivera. What is it going to take for him to be back? To me, it's a Super Bowl, guys. I don't know. Maybe my expectations are high. Even a playoff win, what has he done I don't think he's done enough as a coach. I think if they can get far in the playoffs, I think it'll be despite him, because, his lack of understanding of of situational game issues has been glaring this year and every year he's been here. The one thing you want to have about the head coach, you want to at least have them able to do that. If he's letting EB run the offense and JDR run the defense, he should be hyper-focused on all that stuff. And all he's done is gone downhill. So I don't think that there's just because the ownership group gave him praise and was nice. Listen, this is business, man. They're not going to say you suck and you're mid at best. So I think that it would take something astronomical for him to be back, and let's just hope they build it the right way.
I kind of wish the ownership group, especially Magic Johnson, would just stay in the background. I think we've seen enough, out of front office people coming out and I just want everybody to be quiet. And I'm gonna kind of piggyback of what you said a little bit earlier in your comment about having EB take over for Ron mid-season. Like for me, I just wanted him. I'm fine with letting Ron work out the season. Let him work out the season and let EB just worry about the offense,
right?
Because I think if we're starting to see better game plans and play calling later in the season. If we put too much on him, it could be just too much. So I like EB is basically he's having his job interview for the rest, a job interview, whether it's for here or 31 other teams, just like Sam Howell. And I kind of want to segue into Sam. Adam, are you a Sam sexual?
No,
you are coining that phrase. Yes,
I'm doing it.
I'll admit, since the scouting is my main thing, there's only been a couple players that have came through here, and Sam Howell was the second guy that I scouted pre-draft. I was a lot higher than him. I had him as a late first rounder. So to say that I'm delighted of what I've seen is an understatement. But am I sold that he's a franchise savior? Not yet. At best, to me, I mean, at worst, I think he's a very good backup if things go wrong. But I think right now he's on the trajectory. If you can actually build him an offensive line, his mental clock speeds up, and I'm seeing it happen already. At worst, he's that 15 middle of the pack kind of quarterback. So I think if you're looking to build a franchise, you don't trade up to the first top 10 to get that next year. I think if you go into season, okay, this is what we got, I say you build everything else around him. So I am a fan because unfortunately, he is still doing some of the things in college, which is taking those bad sacks. But again, you have to have confidence in your offensive linemen, and you're seeing it with Larson and Paul in the game. That whole area right here, if you just look at the tape, he's stepping up with a lot more confidence. And I'll tell you, that run that he had, whatever happens with this guy in this career, it was at 3rd and 23, he got 24 yards. Man, that's going to be on his highlight. Either it's going to be just on a highlight film or a Hall of Fame reel, depending on how good he does. But those are the kind of plays that you need to see from a future franchise quarterback. So right now I'm seeing it. We're heading in the right trajectory. So I agree with at least Ron Rivera. That's the only thing we're on the same page. He said today that he's on the right trajectory. There's still half season to go. But, man, I'm really excited because if you can have a dual threat guy that's really, throw downfield first, throw it on a rope, really has good anticipation ability. Because, listen, man, some of those drops, you're talking about he could have 2 400-plus yard games, bad drops by Diame and even Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
So, he's doing his job. Granted, he's taking bad sacks, could end up being a record at the end of the year. But despite that, he's ranked 2nd in the NFL right now passing. He's looking good doing it. So just got to have those wins, though.
Oh, yeah. Now, we know Scotty's a Samsexual.
Absolutely. with you there. I mean, his poise is there, and it isn't a coincidence that the 2 offensive linemen are there. It's pure mass is what you've got to look at in front of you. Tyler Larson is straight out of the protection call and into the block. He's not a point in center. He's not one who's going to, show his hand around and point out where the protection is, but he's doing his job. And obviously, for whatever the signal calling is there, it's great. I mean, the classic for me and what I've seen from looking back at film and watching Sam from the last game is, he's standing at the line and calling the protections, and he's audible in and saying, look, it's cover 0. You can see it's cover 0. And then that throw to Jahan, for the touchdown is just like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see what you're doing here. Larson straight out of his block, giving him that extra tick just to be able to enable Sam to throw it. Whereas I think before with Nick Gates, who isn't naturally a center, he's a left guard and has been for his entire career. He's played a bit at center, but he comes across, and I'm not blaming it.
He played well in
I'm not blaming it, and I'm not blaming it at all on him as a whole, but it hasn't worked. It's clearly not worked. Them 2 acquisitions there, him and Wiley, just haven't worked for whatever reason.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate real quick. I've been looking at a lot of numbers. A lot of people come out, especially this week, because Hal's starting to get, national attention.
He is.
Multiple people, and I got tweets bookmarked. People that study the numbers, they study the NFL. They sit and watch every single play multiple times. They do the timing. PFF has came out and stated that this offensive line has not gotten any better. The wins are the same since the switch. Doug Farrar, this is one of the ones that I have bookmarked. Says Hal has been much better against pressure over the last month. It's not because Commanders' offensive line is better all of a sudden. It really isn't. The pocket movement to keep this alive, as he gave an example of in the Eagles game against Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. The pocket movement to keep this alive against Sweat and Williams, collapsed everything. The inside step was one. Step 2 is the completely obscene throw to Jamison Crowder over Reed Blankenship and James Bradbury for the touchdown. That's just an example. So I listen, I'm not in the numbers. I don't sit and study the film. I just don't have time to do that shit. I used to a couple of years ago. I tried to, I just don't have the time to do that. But when you see stuff like that and you see the play calling evolve and change, because Bieniemy has been calling more quick stuff. Sam has been a lot better in the pocket about moving and manipulating the pocket, getting outside, throwing, the quick slants outs, and being able to do that. It will stop a defense from just trying to tee off on them straight ahead. I mean, is it that the offensive line is better? Is Paul and Larson making it that much better? Or is Bieniemy starting to game plan better around Hal, knowing the deficiencies that he has at the offensive line? Adam, we'll start with you.
I think it's a little bit of both because, Gates was literally getting pushed into Hal. So there is a significant difference in the change.
I'll say that you're right, but so is Larson.
Yeah,
I mean, there's plenty of video proof to show that. And Paul, he's been rated one of the worst damn offensive linemen since he's came in. But it seems like in the run game, they're opening up holes better, and it seems like, obviously Hal's been getting sacked less. So I'm trying to, I mean, is it that we want to say that these guys are much better than Charles and Gates, or is it Bieniemy that's just finally coming around to game planning right?
Listen, all respect to PFF, okay, to all of those guys, Nick, all those guys, I've known those guys for years, all respect. But I think when it comes to offensive line, I think it's extremely difficult because the line changes, movements, assignments. A guy next to you can literally blow his assignment and he can look perfect and you can look like you fucked up the play because you went this way and went that way. We don't know that. And we don't know that at all. And when Charles was in, one thing about him is he was showing a lot more muscle than Paul. But Paul, what I like, because he's another guy I evaluated, he's a lot more technically sound. And yes, ratings wise, not good. But if you see some of the bigger plays they've had, his head's on more of a swivel than Charles and some of the other guys were. So yeah, it's a step in the right direction. Is he the solution for the future? No. But I do think that those two changes together, not singular, not Larson by himself and not Paul by himself, both of those together, somehow it's combined to work out. And I know the PFF rankings, I've read all them, and it is a bit of a head scratcher for me. But it is how getting the ball out faster. It's EB doing adjustments, but I think these guys are just working better at what EB is trying to do. I think it has a lot to do is maybe EB wasn't comfortable doing certain things with Gates at center because, just about his lack of bend, his athleticism. I think, they thought Charles, I said Charles can be really good. I said, he's just not going to stay healthy. And
we all knew that. We all knew that coming into the season. Yeah.
But going into next season, man, yeah, you got to just dedicate to the offensive line. You got to just get some, just like Doc Walker, just, those grinders, those tough son of a bitches. I like Paul a lot right now, but again, another, day 3 guy, we're developing. But if we want to really compete, really get the best out of Sam Howell, this is not a 2-year project. I want to see a lot of change next year. So I want to see a revamped offensive line. What are we going to have in Stromberg when he comes back?
That's the thing right there. Are we going to need 3 offensive linemen or are we going to need 4? Because Stromberg is the key right here. I got faith. I think Stromberg is going to be our future at center. At least I all should hope. We loved what he saw coming out of college. Kind of surprised that he hasn't got playing time yet, especially with Gates and Charles. You'd figure there's a spot for him somewhere. But obviously they're more comfortable with Larson and Larson's been in the game. I mean, he's good for 3-4 games a season, and to be honest with you, I expect him to get hurt at some point in time soon. Knock on wood. There's nothing against Larson. He's played very well when he's been in, but he's like Charles, he is fragile, but
he's not a specimen. Like Charles is a specimen.
Yeah.
He's not a specimen. He's just, he's an old school throwback kind of big guy, Gates, same kind of guys, so I think that hoping that he'll play the rest of the year is far-fetched. And again, that's when you start getting in trouble because now you're looking for some of your guard that can play center because right now there's not really, any true centers. And I think with Stromberg, I think he got playing time at guard, but I think that they don't trust him yet. I don't think there's been probably any reps with Sam Howell. And I think that that's the major concern. That's the thinking. But I thought they should have attempted it because I think you still have Larson. If it doesn't go right, you insert him. But I think, he was already ailing from an injury, playing through it a little bit from what I heard. And then he finally got knocked out and went to IR. So I think you're going into free agency. I think even though 3rd round is high, you're still thinking about getting those positions. So, you've got to go big in free agency for at least one guy. Right now, it's slim pickings if you look at left tackle. So I'm looking at that in the draft. You got 38-year-old guys in free agency. So, right tackle, interior guys, these are kind of the guys you're looking at free agency. So I think, 3 to 4 guys you're hoping to be starters because right now you have a bunch of reserves, in my opinion.
Are you looking at trying to go to a Joe Alt in the draft, or are you looking at trying to go to I can't remember his name. Is it Oliver Shanu from Penn State?
Yeah. Well, right now as it stands, everybody knows, we're in November, so those are the 2 top guys. But we've seen it like crazy. The new rule that the Senior Bowl did, which I love. Now we're going to have juniors at the Senior Bowl, so the pool is going to be a lot bigger. What that's going to do now is a lot more guys are going to shine. So don't be surprised if you see 2-3 more guys in the discussion, even ahead of those or in the same rank. So I think this is a really good draft for Washington to have extra picks. Because I think if they have to move up to get one or even sit where they are to get one, I think that they're going to get a starting caliber left tackle. But right now, those 2 guys are the best of the rest.
This is why in some ways I'm a bit torn in thinking to myself, well, we're 1 game out of the 7th seed and, if we win on Sunday, where are we going to be? And is that stick test where we could go on a run, which Ron always seems to do in and around this time. November's the month of winning for him. And then I look and think we're going to be perennially picking it around 11 to 14 again. I predicted 7 wins before the season was started, and that's seemingly where I think we'll end up again, But I just think if you're in that 11 to 14 range, you're hoping again that you hit. And from what we've seen before, and I don't know if that's scouting or if that's the GM or if that's particular positional coaches or coordinators are asking for these players, it hasn't really worked, on even first rounders or second rounders over the last couple of years.
That's the thing. And my mindset is I don't care if we're 2 and 15 or 12 and whatever, it doesn't matter to me. Let the chips fall where they may at the end of the season. You go in every Sunday wanting and trying to win. I am never for tanking. I don't the NFL, you can't really tank in the NFL. There's too many players to really allow that, and as you see in Philly, tanking will get you fired or attempting to tank will get you fired. But the fact of the matter is, the draft's a crapshoot in a sense, Yeah, there's players out there that are more, you have a better chance of hitting on than others. But still, the reality is who was coaching and who's calling the plays, and bringing them up. So in reality is, man, I think you can get an all-pro player in the 7th round. You can get an all-pro player in the 1st round. It's all about scouting and coaching them up to me. So as far as where we're drafting at, yeah, it'd be nice to have, you'd be able to move up to the top 10, but you don't have to. I mean, you have teams like the Chiefs and the Patriots for all them years, picked at the end of the draft. You have to have a quarterback, period, and if we have solved that quarterback, which nobody knows this yet, I don't care if you think you are 1,000% sure on Sam Howell. I'm sorry, you're not. We don't know if he's the guy yet. We're letting this play off to the end of the season, and we're going to let the new GM, figure that out. We're hoping that he is. That is the best case scenario for us. So we do not have to use draft picks to package up to move up and get one of these, really good prospects coming out next year. We hope we already have him in house and we're able to build around him. But again, we just don't know. We really don't. It's the rest of the season is big for two people on this team, and that's Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy, straight up. I mean, that's what this season is all about. And damn straight, I'm hoping that we go to the playoffs because I want to be in it. That's me.
That's the point.
And if we win 2 playoff games and Ron's back next year, well, guess fucking what? So be it. We got a quarterback. He probably won't last after that, but deal with the shit because I want to win. I want our quarterback. I want our quarterback for the next 10 years. And if it takes, us backing into the playoffs at 7 and 9, which probably will happen in the NFC, there's going to be the 7th seed is going to have a losing record with how bad the NFC is. I firmly believe that whether it's 8 or 9 or what have you, I think it's going to be an 8 and 9 team getting in to that 7th seed. And if it's us, you know what? It's us. I'm gonna cheer just as hard no matter what. And then come April, it's draft time. All right, let's see what this new front office is going to do. We got some extra picks. We can finagle here and there. And right. You know what? I mean, look what last year's draft brought us. We trade back a couple spots and got us damn near four starters, So who knows? You never know what's going to happen in the draft. What do you think, Adam?
True.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. Like getting the top 10, yeah, I guess it's happy during draft time because you can look at all the top guys and thinking one of them could be yours. Or like Washington fans, more in that 11 to 17 range, you can be more realistic. But like you said, that's why I'm excited because once you have those extra picks, no matter where they fall, if they really want a guy, they have enough. I assure you right now, they have enough to move up if they're going to be aggressive enough. Other than that, I want to finally trust the scouting. It's been hard to do over the last couple of years. People already calling Forbes a bust. Man, I'll tell you right now, if you have Coach Harris here, He's not playing the same way. I'll tell you that right now.
Agreed.
So if you say, oh, yeah, Gonzalez, he's way better. He's on IR with New England, and he had one interception before. And
I got high hopes for Forbes in the future, man. I really do. I got high hopes for Forbes in the future.
And I think people are really caught up. And you want to know what? You call me a homer or whatever. One thing I listen to is our grades. And I listen to Dale Green. I put that video on my YouTube. And he was like, listen, I only need 10 minutes with him. He didn't say, let me work with him, let me be your coach, whatever. I said, let's bring him and be the coach. He said, let me get 10 minutes with him. He sees his problems in obviously on the field.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this. I think it was a fan question. We talked about, should NFL teams, give former players, the opportunity to come in and talk with teams. And I think there should be like a mentorship program. I wouldn't say have them come in and coach, but some sort of mentorship program that they can talk about the mentality of what's going on. I think that would be a good thing, to be honest with you.
Because you look at former players, Chris Harris, like I was saying, he was with Washington last year. I think we've seen a dramatic drop with our defensive backs, without him in the lineup. I think he was
has not done them no favors. Yeah.
There's no teachers going on. And like that's what I want to see next year. And I think the Harris group has money. See, you don't get caught up just coaching. There's a lot of other positions that aren't coaches, that are guys that can come in that are consultants. Good teams have wide receiver consultants. They have running back consultants, guys, and a lot of them are former players. There's a reason those guys get hired in front office. There's a reason those guys get hired for other positions, because it's about experience. It's just like in a company. You've been in a company for 20 years. Sometimes you stay where you are. Sometimes you move around and move up just because, you're a mover and a shaker. You talk to people and you create contacts. That's the difference. And Darryl Green, what I loved is he straight up said is, I haven't been watching. I haven't really been keeping a close eye to a lot. But as soon as that fan came up to Forbes and said, you need to watch some Darryl Green, I was laughing at that fan. But, man, I'm thankful to her. He said he started watching him since then. Yeah. And he's watched every game. And he basically said things can be fixed. So when you hear a Hall of Famer say that, that gives me hope. And I wasn't out on Forbes because I think, I think his ability to play in zone is just so underrated. Just because he can play press and he did it in college, I think his instincts and ability to break on the ball, he's ideal for zone. So I still think that it goes back to the William Jackson scenario. We're still trying to get Jack Del Rio still believes he can put these players into positions, into areas that they're not comfortable with and make them shine. And that's a big problem we have.
Perfect segue to the next topic and this defense. We were playing more man this year than we have in a very, very long time. Last year, that zone match started to work. We figured when we drafted Forbes, hey, I think he'd be perfect in that zone match scheme. And we're playing less and less of it. What the fuck is the deal with that? What is going on with that? It makes no goddamn sense to me that you switch from a couple of years ago to the zone match. Holy shit, it works. And then this year coming in, we think that our defensive back room is going to be a strength of the team. And it turns out that pretty much it's the weakness of the team, let alone our non-existent defensive line that seems to, for some reason, numbers saying that they're getting pressures. We ain't seen them for some odd reason. Adam, what's going on with this, man?
Yeah, I think they get caught up in thick juice. He's a guy that he's a prototypical press corner. He has the ability to do that. But, man, he's grabby too. What I mean? His numbers with PFF, everything this year, they have been good. I'm not going to lie. But I think they're kidding themselves to think that they have the ideal group to play that. I think they don't. And I think you're trying to bring a rookie in. And this is where size does come in, just because he was able to do that, long arms, really giving him advantage in, some of those punches and things close to the line. But I think Jack Del Rio is just not a teacher. So it's just like, okay, here it is, go out and do it. And I think that's what really happened with Forbes. He's getting his lumps because of it. And that mesh concept, that was working. And I don't know. JDR is a coach that I can't figure out because it's like night and day with things. And I think his hope was that he would get these guys to play more discipline. And I think that's where arrogance comes in, because I think some of the best coaches in this league, what they do, and that's Bieniemy's a classic guy. This is what he said. He plays to the strength of his players. And I think right now, if you really want to get the best out of guys like Payne and Allen, you're just going to let them go attack mode, get those guys to seal the edges, because right now, they're rotational guys that got some sacks. You know what I mean? So I think that he's still stuck in that dinosaur age that, follow my system and that's it. And he tries to get cute. And I think that they have this goal that, the better teams in the NFL run press, so that's what we're going to do. But listen, I like Juan Martin. Don't get me wrong, but I thought we'd be seeing him have more opportunities in the slot, because when I watched his film in Illinois, he was a decent safety, but man, he was a really good slot corner.
Yeah.
But they
I think the preseason kind of scared them off a little bit, but they need to get him back out there too. Now, look, going back to the Giants game, minus the Philadelphia game, we know Philly's going to put up some points, but the defense has seemed to get a little bit better. At least, I mean, they're not perfect by any means, but you saw signs of them being a little bit more solid. Can this continue coming up with a? They haven't really been high powered this year yet, but last year the Seattle's offense was really high powered. How do we stop this Seattle offense when you got players like DK Metcalf, which has been on the injury report? I don't know I didn't see the final report today.
So was Lockett. He was on, and so was DK today. So they were both on there. Didn't practice again, DK today.
Oh wow. Okay, so
they want to run the ball. Listen, though, because they're two guys. Walker and Carbonet. Carbonet is a guy I've been scouting for his last 2 years at UCLA. This is a guy that in a couple years, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be one of the top guys in the league. So they've got this 1-2 punch that Washington's got to stop that. If they don't stop that, forget about the receivers.
I think we've done pretty well against the run this year. Relatively defense against the run this year. But like Lockett, it's the explosive plays that's killing us this year. And Lockett and DK scare the shit out of me coming up. And maybe if they're hobbled a little bit, that might be in our favor. But the explosive plays is what's going to hurt us. And I do think we have a chance to win this game come Sunday if we can limit those plays. I think, besides the bonehead, it was a 3-level play, all 3 levels of that play, the Ramondre Stevenson touchdown run, all 3 levels screwed up. It wasn't everybody on watching the game, blaming on Jamin Davis. Yeah, he was one of them, but so did Percy Butler, and I think so did Deron Payne. Wasn't in the proper gap. If we can limit that stuff, that game is nowhere near as close as what it was. If we can limit that turnover, that was just a great play and that punch out from Brian Robinson. But that was a good pass, to Henry from Mac Jones. He had one good pass in that game. But I do think, as we've seen in season past, later on in the season, the defense does get a little bit better. Do you have hope that maybe we can contain these teams and keep them from 23 points and under for the rest of the season, Adam?
To me, it comes down to 2 guys. It really comes down to Allen and Payne, because again, they've been a little MIA. I think they have to dominate because you've seen when those 2 guys do good, the rest of the team plays off them, regardless if it's Young or Sweaty. And if it's not both, one of them, has to, create those, big time plays. I think you got to have turnovers. You got to win the turnover battle in Seattle. So to me, the only way they win, you said the first, explosive plays is number 1. Win the turnover battle, stop the run. If you can do all three phases, you got it. But I don't know. It's a hostile environment. If it was at home, not that I'm so excited about FedEx, but Seattle's a hostile environment. So even when they're down and they just got blown out, that's the kind
they're coming in with a sour taste in their mouth. That's for sure.
It's up 20 points. We've seen that they continuously blow leads, so it's never going to be safe until the end of the game. But I don't know. I have Seattle by 11 in this one, because I think that they're really going to come out hard. I think Sam Howell will have a better second half than he have a first half. I just don't think it'll be enough, because I think when it comes down to Seattle, I think they're just going to really. One thing I've seen with Carroll and their staff is, they also made this trade. Now they got the trade for the Giants defensive tackle. So I think that they've got a lot more beef inside, and they're just going to look to collapse that pocket. So if they can hold up, we'll see.
Yeah, Scott, as Adam just touched on, Sam coming into home of the 12th man. We've seen Sam, we don't see him get rattled really that much. Do you think that the crowd is going to affect Sam in any way?
Possibly. It's very difficult for anybody to play there. We have to be perfectly honest. It's how the silent count goes for Sam. Have they worked on it enough? Does he have the signal calls down? and it is going to be a difficult task for him to do. Going back to the receivers, what we just talked about there, Lockett obviously scares the absolute bejesus out of me. He really worries me for this weekend. Metcalf, I'm not too fussed about. He obviously is running kind of straight routes, go routes, not so much of the expansive routes. But I think Forbes, if you're going to match him on with Metcalf, it's going to be difficult because he's that big body guy, and it's going to be a bit of a. It's going to be. He needs some help over the top. He needs some safety help. He needs someone helping him. To say, look, this is what we're going to do. And if you can spot them matchups. If he can manage that where he's not matched up against him, that'll be better for Emmanuel Forbes because he did have a decent enough game, but you can only go against what's in front of you. In New England missing their 2 top wide receivers last week in Kendrick Bourne and Parker, and I'm not convinced that we're going to do much in this game. I'm like Adam. We'll come to it in a minute about predictions, but one of my keys to victory here is making sure that Sam listens to that and understands that silent count. And it's similar sort of situation to last week as well. We have to grind this out and play for time of possession. And I think if we can do that and we can run the ball a little bit more, being a little bit more balanced, maybe 60-40, that'll play into our hands, hopefully. I'm looking at from a rose tinted specs.
We're going to do, Adam, give me a offensive key to a victory.
I'm going to go across the grain here from what we've seen, establish the run. I think we haven't really seen them do that, but I think this is the week. I just have a good feeling that they're really going to get that going. I think that they've liked some of the things they've seen from Antonio Gibson. Right now, I think he was the third or fourth running back as far as yards in the NFL right now. So I think they're going to try to look to get him going. We started to see Rodriguez a couple weeks ago. Thought we were going to see the change. I think that they're more sold on Robinson.
Robinson's getting 4 yards per carry right now. Why not run him more? I mean, that's one of the things that's baffled me about Bieniemy is throwing the ball 55 times in a row. Which I kind of understand when you're down by that much, but still, just run the ball, man.
It's never 40, is it? It's always over 40 a game, and you just think. Anybody, as we discussed on Monday, any quarterback at all, if you're going over 40 throws a game, is gonna make a mistake. It's inevitable that's going to happen.
And I think he'll have his opportunities this week. So the second thing I was going to say is his reads. We've seen too many times, as good as Sam Howell's been playing, he's I think he's either staying with that. It's not always easy to tell because you don't know who the hot route is always. But it seems like he's stuck on a read because you always see a guy come open, in the middle, like, Thomas or, was Dotson a couple weeks ago. Now we're starting to see Dotson get the ball. So what that showed me is that film he's learning because he's seeing that he was missing Dotson. What did he do? He's been hitting them off. So I think this week you're going to see a heavy dose of McLaurin until they, make it not happen. If that happens, I think you'll spread it around. Samuel's probably not going to play. I think he's questionable.
No, but it's iffy. It's 50-50.
Listen, guys, I don't want him to play. I'll be honest with you right now. I don't want a 70% Samuel because I like what we've seen in Crowder.
Crowder's been great.
I read your article, which was very good, by the way.
That guy get around, get involved in underneath routes like the slants, crossers. It's working for them. So a lot of quick game, establish that run, but I think they got to get going fast.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Running the ball. I think that's. I want to see Robinson carry himself the ball 21 times, like just himself. Yeah. Defensively, they have some issues on their offensive line. The right tackle it hasn't played since week 1. I think they need to get after the quarterback. I think we need to see another 2-sack game from Tuhill. He's got 4 sacks on the season. He's quietly had 4 sacks on the season, so we know he can get there. And stopping the run. I think if we do that, there's a slight chance. We talked about the explosive plays. Obviously, we need to do that. So now we're going to go around the room to finish up and give me we're going to do offense. And then we are going to, if I can get rid of this real quick, an X factor. So,
okay.
Offense first, Adam. Who's your offensive? One player who needs to have a huge game for Washington to win?
I think it's Terry McLaurin. You know, I'm tempted to say Antonio Gibson, but you know, I think it's got to be Terry McLaurin. I think, you know, you've heard over the last couple of weeks, you know, is he getting enough targets? Is he getting enough looks? You know, the question is, you know, which of the DBs, Seattle DB is going to cover? You know, either way, he's going to face talent. So I think, you know, he's going to be the guy that if you get him going on a couple big routes, you know, get that PI, you know, big time catches. I think he's he's one that's going to be the X factor of the game, even though he's not really like an unknown X factor, but I think he needs to be the one for them to pull this one out. And I think you're talking about, you know, 2 touchdowns, you know, 130, 140 yards. That's what it's going to take from him.
Big game, big game. Yep. Scotty, who's your offensive X factor?
I'm going to go Logan Thomas. I think, you know, tight end's a quarterback's best friend. He needs to step it up again. He's had a decent game against Philly, a bit quiet last week, but yeah, Logan Thomas for me needs to have that quiet but good game. He needs to be that big body guy that we see, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go a little bit off base here, but I'm going to go Larson. He needs to have a big game up front. Let's protect Sam Howell. If we can keep him semi-clean, let's not give up more than 2 sacks this game. I think this, you know, it could bode well for this offense. You know, I think we're going to need to score 30 points to win this game, to be honest with you. Let's run to the defensive side of the ball. Scott, I will start for you. Who is the one player that needs to have a huge game for Washington to be successful and come out of Washington with a win?
Daron Payne for me. I'm not between either two, but it's got to be Daron Payne. Missing an action, as Adam said before, has been for a few weeks now. We have to see some interior pressure. Heavy dose of the Cinco package is what I want to see to stop that run when it needs to be contained. But we also need to see pressure from either the ends or the center. But if you've got this vaunted interior line, use it and get there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Payne had an amazing season last year. It just hasn't hit them heights this year so far.
No doubt. Adam, who's your defensive X factor?
I was going to say Payne, but right after that, to me, it's Jamin Davis. I think Jamin Davis needs to have just like I said, McLaurin's got to have the best game of his year. I think Davis got to have the best game of the year. I think, you know, looking for, you know, some forced turnovers and interception. He's still raw in a lot of areas, but I think, you know, I want to see him attacking the ball. And I keep saying that, like, I think they like him in coverage because of he's got the best athleticism of the linebacker corps. But what he does well too is he is underrated at rushing the passer. That's what he did last year at Kentucky. You know, he was really good in that area. I think it was 6.5 sacks, you know, looked really good in that role. And I think that's the kind of guy, if you can bring him on Geno and a couple stunts, things like that, I think, you know, 3-4 sack performance, forced turnover, you know, that's the kind of game right there that not by himself, 3-4 sacks, but the defense, if he can create that, you know, that's the kind of thing that can swing the tide.
Yeah, this works out perfectly because Scott, you have an X factor on the line. Adam, you got an X factor in the middle, and my X factor is Percy Butler. Protect those explosive plays, man. You are the last man in defense, you know, against Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. You know, got to have the help over the top, limit those explosive plays, and I think we really got a shot. If you can do that, I think we're going to be fine. You know, score predictions, Scotty. I'll start with you.
Okay, so I think I think this is going to be a close game or closer game for about 3 quarters. And whether it goes to the 4th quarter and we get a little bit blown out, I think we'll probably be behind by 7 moving into the 4th quarter. And then I think they score another touchdown and we lose this by 14 in the end.
Close
it doesn't
game.
look so close. No, it's going to be close for a long time.
I'm doing the scouts from y'all's podcast.
I know you were, from yesterday. He was like, you're going to get smoked. No, it's not. No. But I do think 31-17 is kind of where I'm heading at.
Gotcha. I see this game working out 2 ways, man. It's either we're going to get our asses stomped and the wheels are going to fall off, or we're going to win a damn nail biter and Joey Sly is going to kick a game-winning field goal. Where's a coin? I'm going to flip it right now. Let's see. All right, I got a nail biter as a win. Okay, we're gonna win 31-30. Off of a 55-yard Joey Sly field goal. Yeah, that'd be great. All right, Adam, what you got? What's your score prediction?
I'm trying to find my score that I said with Doug and the guys earlier, but I had 11-point win for Seattle. I had 27-16.
Don't even have us covering. Come on.
Yeah, no.
Hater.
I think, like
hater.
you said, I think
Adam's a hater.
Get blown out. I don't know. I'm not feeling good about this one.
Lockhart in the chat there, losing by 14 ain't close, bro. It is if you run it for 3 quarters, mate. You know what I mean? And you're losing by 7, and you've got 5 minutes to go or something, and then you're down another touchdown. It doesn't look close on the scoreboard, but I think it will be a close game.
I got such mixed emotions about this game. You know, like throughout the whole entire week, I'm like, one day I'm comfortable. I'm like, we could really do this. And the next day I was like, we're going to get our ass kicked. Like, I don't know. I really don't know how to feel about this game because there's avenues to win in this game.
Yeah.
Seattle has not played well this year. I mean, if you're going back and you really think and about the games that they've played, is their offense isn't nearly as explosive as it was last year. I know we talked about this maybe a week or so ago about, you know, potential head coaches, you know, possibly coming in the next season, you know, and Shane Walden was mentioned because of the work that he's done with Geno Smith. And, you know, hats off to him. I mean, Geno is a totally different quarterback in Seattle than he was in New York. So I don't know. I do see a potential path to victory, and I think there's a good chance of it. But I also see a path of getting our asses whooped. Like seriously, like, you know, going out and playing Seattle is no joke. That stadium is the loudest stadium. You know, they're called the 12th man for the reason, because it really gets in the opponent's head. So who knows? I mean, I guess we're gonna hope for the best and prepare for the worst, because, you know, the Twitter meltdown is coming. That's for sure. I mean, it inevitably happens, you know. I mean, this is Washington fan base for you. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think there's a chance. I do. I really, really do.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance. Adam, we really going and joining us. So why don't you tell the listeners where they can catch you at?
Yeah, just, you know, always catch me on Twitter at the BNG Report, and all my content, the Burgundy and GoldReport.com. I do my show with George Carmi and Douglas McRae every Monday. We do a follow-up show. Also have BNG Report Happy Hour, so it's all the Burgundy and GoldReport.com. So.
Excellent. And
you put in a fantastic article about Crowder up, by the way, recently.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Checked it out. Go and have a read of it. Very, very good. Keep sending me them as well. I like them.
Definitely.
You can catch Hartley on his 1 Point Safety Show. Him and Scouse Andy puts it out every Thursday. We also have a NFL Pick Show that me and Hartley and John Taman does on a weekly basis. Tomorrow at 2:00. John is currently out of town with his lovely wife. So we'll be just me and Scott picking the games against the spread. And got to tell you guys, I'm doing pretty well lately. I'm interested to see what happened last week. I'm definitely way in the black. But you can also catch us after the game. Directly after the game, we have a bit of a mashup with the boys from the Bunker, the 1 Point Safety Show, and all of Bleeding Burgundy podcasts. We get in and do our initial reaction right after the game. Most of us are pissed off and
lots of swearing.
Yeah, lots of swearing. And then obviously Mondays at 5:30. Catch us for our more thought processed recap of the day before games. So yeah, y'all have a good night. Thanks for joining in.
Thanks everybody.